As the state of living for millions of Nigerians continues to bite harder, experts are calling on the federal government to review the high cost of governance. Nigerians are suffering acute hardship orchestrated by the removal of fuel subsidies and unification of the exchange rate, which has affected the cost of living for every Nigerian.
Recently, the supplementary budget has raised dust on how the country's debt deficit intends to be handled, how taxpayers' monies and fiscal allocations are being utilized to the benefit of its citizens, down to the recent budget performances of governors in Lagos, Abia, Benue, and other states. And without a doubt, the struggling situation and exorbitant spending of government officials is telling on every ramification of the economy. Joining us this morning, we have Dr. Ikechukwu Kelikume from the Economics Department at Lagos Business School. Good morning. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good morning.
Good to have you on the program.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for a long time, mostly this year, we've heard the current administration advise Nigerians to tighten their belts and to sit tight, because it's going to be, a little rough as we try to take Nigeria back from, where the previous administration left it. Is it heartbreaking seeing, these figures from different states and how taxpayers' monies are being utilized here and there, seemingly very wasteful?
I think it is not new. When you sample the states that you currently look at Lagos and you look at the other states that have actually come up with their figures, it's actually not new. So we're looking at a scenario that has been on right from the 1960s down to the 70s, down to the 80s. Reckless spending on the part of governments. It's not new. It's actually, and this administration is not different from what we've had in the time past.
Okay, as an economist and one who has indeed followed very clearly what's going on in the country, what would you advise should be the remedy, the first few remedies that the government ought to engage in order to restore citizen confidence in rulership, in governorship, most importantly at this time, this critical situation that we find ourselves?
So I think we need to look at it from the key sectors of the economy. There are key sectors that are actually driving the economy. There are also key sectors that are contributing to the Nigerian GDP. If we neglect those sectors, especially the sectors that actually employs more Nigerians, if you look at my background, you will see that I am an ardent follower of the agriculture and the agribusiness space, and that's what I teach. Part of what I teach in the business school, agribusiness. Again, agriculture contributes about 23% to Nigeria's GDP and employs over 35% of the working population of this country. If we do not go back to look at that sector that actually employs more people, we are going to be in trouble. Interestingly, the sector has more of 80% smallholder farmers that can even barely aggregate a plot of land. And when we look at the figures that the government are actually spending on things that we can't fathom, we can't figure out, it's really, really sad.
Do these things have a direct impact on Nigeria's economic, projections?
It does. It actually kills the morale. It destroys the morale of people who voted for them in power in the first place. It also destroys you see, when you ask everybody, the sentiment of the people in the street is that there's no hope. Now, with all these figures we are seeing, there's actually no hope. So, and when you are hopeless, there is nothing you do to actually cure the ailment. So it does have impact on the economy.
I'd like us to look into the impact that it has on the economy, but there are seemingly glaring ones that we indeed can see for ourselves. If we take a look at the medical field, recently we've seen the price of medications, drugs, in order to take care of the health of citizens shoot up. It's gone up, especially with the exit of GSK. And we also hear that it's rumored that there are more companies that are about to exit the country. My question to you simply is this. With these current facts on ground, and the president trying to, get a lot of investors into the country. What are we likely to see in the coming years, especially during President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's 4-year tenure?
So investors are actually seeing the numbers. They're actually looking and seeing the numbers. They are also well informed about your insecurity and the state of your country. So definitely money will not move into a country that is volatile. Money will not move into a country that is highly unstable. Money actually will flee that country. So what you find today is capital flight. Rather than attracting foreign direct investors, more people will, even when they come, money will not go into your FDIs. It will rather go into a sector where they can move their money quickly when there is trouble. But I don't see investors coming into your country when the major investors are leaving. So it has direct impact on the people, on the workforce, especially each time I look at these numbers, each time I look at take for example, we want to bring back the exchange rates to the era of 1-to-1. If you look at when it started in 1985, when we actually said our currency was overvalued, when we adopted the structural adjustment program in 1985, 86. If you look at it critically, you will see that nothing new or nothing has changed since 1986. More firms left the Nigerian economy since 1986. We had so many, we can actually list them, so many multinational companies that have actually left. The one that I can remember quickly is Dunlop and Michelin. Why exactly did they leave? The country was really harsh, a very harsh operating environment for them. So they had to leave. And when companies are leaving, you're going to find direct hit on the populace, the people that are employed in those companies. So we have a problem at hand. All of this noise about bringing foreign direct investors, when we're not looking deep at how do we even show up productivity? If you're going to import rechargeable fans, if you're going to import rechargeable lights, and you're spending billions of naira doing this, you're actually fueling the exchange rate crisis. You're not solving the problem. If you're importing bulletproof cars, you're with billions of naira hard-earned income or taxpayers' money, you're adding to the problem, the exchange rate crisis that we currently have. So definitely speculators are actually looking at the currency and saying that the currency will continuously take a beating and they will ever continue to bet on the naira or bet against the naira.
We of course had a previous administration that of course still has the 23 trillion naira ways and means. I'm going to call it a scandal at this point. And other mistakes that were seemingly made by the previous administration. The CBN governor, of course, is going through his legal battles currently. Do you think we're in a situation that is unfixable? Have we gone too deep into this economic mess that it almost cannot be fixed? And so what we can do instead is manage and manage and manage so it doesn't get worse.
So there is actually no problem without a solution, and there's no problem that cannot be fixed. So when you look at the typical crisis at hand today, we need to go back to the drawing board. If I ask you, what's our vision? What's our current vision as a country? I don't think we have a vision. What we keep talking about is medium-term expenditure framework. We look at every year, we look at the budget, we keep bloating up the budget every year. We have no clear-cut vision of where we are going. We do not even have a vision for each of the sectors that are supposedly driving the economy. So if we go back to the drawing board and realize that Nigeria has to fix all of these things. When you look at whatever you find in the news today, is all about corruption. It's all about jailing people. It's all about sending people to jail. But that's not the problem. What I share in class is corruption is but a symptom of a bigger monster that is warehoused in Nigeria. That if we can address this monster, we're actually going to see results. And I tell you, if we start today, we are not likely to see results until the next 16 to 18 years, if actually we're starting today. However, we have not started.
That sounds a bit scary, Dr. Ikechukwu. It's a bit 16 years. So what it means is we're in for a long run. Go ahead, please.
I can actually explain it.
Go ahead.
So it takes between 16 and 18 years for you to actually see results if we have a vision. If you take the Lagos rail, and you ask, how many years did it take us to get to where we are today? When Lagos State decided to come up with that rail, how many years did it take Lagos State? How many governments did the rail actually pass through? How many governments? You will see that it took the Lagos State government more than 14 years for us to get to where we are today. So when you have a developmental vision for a country, it is not a 4-year thing. It is not an 8-year thing. So if we craft out a vision today, we are going to see results not in 4 years. And not if we're going to change the narrative, the exchange rate narrative, we have to go back to the drawing board. We have to look at how competitive are we in terms of our various states. Every state has its unique competitiveness. We need to go back to the drawing board. What are those things that we're not doing rightly? And if we pick all of these key points, and we begin to address them, then we are touching the productivity side of the divide. Right now, we're attacking the demand side. And every time you look at the demand side, neglecting the supply side, you're going to continuously have that problem. And you're going to continuously manage the problem year in, year out.
Let's touch a little bit on government expenditure. We've looked at the economy, and you've highlighted some of these key areas where, indeed, the challenges are starting to look humongous, so much. But then again, there was an open letter posted on social media by Action Democratic Congress governorship candidate, Mr. Funsho Doherty, criticizing contract awards of the procurement by the Sanwo-Olu-led administration in Lagos State. Now, on the screen there, the governor has indeed responded, making it clear that through the agency's website, I'll read some parts. It says, acknowledging the misunderstandings arising from a lack of clarity, recognize the unintended misinterpretations of this information. He went on to say that we empathize with the public concerns, and extend our sincere apologies for any distress caused. It's never our intent to cast doubt or cause misunderstandings that might tarnish the reputation of respected individuals and organizations involved in the transactions. Now, it's a long read, but then again, the former governorship aspirant of ADC had queried or criticized the contracts and the awarding of contracts in huge sums, where he said some of these things need to be looked into by the governor. While we're looking at that in Lagos State, we also have that that's going on in other states like Benue, where purported mention came to the fore yesterday that about 2 billion is about to be spent on cars. You are very aware of the supplementary budget as well, where the office of the First Lady, what is not even in the Nigerian Constitution, was indeed accepted and the funds were approved. What do you make of this in light with the situation that Nigerians find themselves? In the local parlance, my friend would say, they touch everybody. So it's touching all of us. What can you make out of this?
I don't think it's touching the people in power. So very simple, what we make out of this is physical rascality and physical indiscipline. So when you do not have a growth plan, when your country is heavily indebted, when you look at Lagos State, and Lagos State is amongst the top 3 states that are heavily indebted, Lagos State is number 1. And you're looking at a state that is heavily indebted and is pursuing this kind of expenditure or this kind of rascality, it actually sends the wrong signal down to the populace and down to the masses, making it difficult to believe that we are going to get out of the wood. Because all of this signals physical indiscipline and physical rascality. I don't know any other word to use to describe it. Because people are in pain, people are suffering, removal of subsidy puts a lot of pressure on people. People cannot, in fact, this is not a time to fall sick. When you fall sick, the cost of treatment is so high. A lot of people are taking to alternative medicine. A lot of people are moving to churches to pray when the ailment can be solved. So there's a problem. We have left the basic sectors that we needed to address. And rather than address education, rather than address health, rather than address wellness, we are looking at how to fund certain people by giving them humongous contracts.
I mean, I think one of the things that must be mentioned here is that this is not a one-person failure. I mean, the focus was on Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu, obviously as the governor of the state. Governor Alex Oti, of course, was mentioned. I've just seen Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State being accused of spending more than 7 billion naira, without going through, the right pathways. But one thing I think we should also mention is that these things are done with the help of public servants in the state. There's people who sign off on these funds. There's people who assist in creating these bogus companies. There's people who assist in, there's no way that 10 billion naira is going to leave the state coffers without some other persons playing a role in assisting that to happen. So what we're running here is a seemingly very corrupt public service, institution in Nigeria. Do I make sense with that?
Yeah, you're right. It cuts across all states. If you probe all the states, you will see that there's no difference in all the states in terms of mismanagement of public funds. It's not something new. It's tied to corruption, and it cuts across all states. And it cuts across all sectors. It's not just the politicians. You find this corruption in the educational sector. You find it in the health sector. You find it in the housing sector. That's why you're finding building collapse in most states. So it cuts across all sectors.
Also look at how can this be stopped? Because, just recently, the front pages of the paper were being told very clearly that there is a probe that's about to happen with funds that had taken place or had happened, years ago, between 2020 and 2021/2022. And we're talking about the Covid19 probe. That's what I'd like to call it, 447 billion naira. If you take a look at the bottom
newspapers,
Daily Trust as well, though we seem to have a difference in the figure. 184 billion naira COVID-19 fund. The Punch says 447 billion naira. And let me also add, one of the major questions for me anytime I see these things is, what is the way to recover these funds? I know you touched on it earlier on in one of your comments. You talked about people who are indeed, of course, maybe put in incarcerated or so on. But how can the government get these funds and get the funds back into the economy?
So we are in a precarious situation. We have an endemic system that, so you start the probe, it's going to be a lengthy judicial probe that, just like what happened during the Buhari's 8 years, where people were probed and nothing happened. We don't get to hear whatever happened, how the money was recovered. It's also like the Abacha's loot, that funds actually came back and there's no accountability. Nobody tells you what those funds were deployed into, and it just fizzles out like that. So it's like I said, if we come up with a vision today to bring back Nigeria to the days of old, to bring us back to a nation state that has a focus and has direction, it's going to take us years. And this reform has to start with the educational sector. I usually say education is the big monster in the house. That the reasons why you have failure at the judicial level, failure at the state level, failure across all government parastatals is because we were all prepared and trained by a failed system. We need to go back to the drawing board. We need to look at our curriculum. We need to begin to redefine who we are and what we want to be. Right now, it is very, very difficult. I don't know how we're going to get out of it. Who is going to sit and judge the people that have looted the country? Who is even clean? So this is a big problem.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like, there's going to be light at the end of the tunnel. It feels like, a repeat of, I mean, we're basically repeating what we've done before, that wouldn't take us anywhere.
Yeah.
Dr. Kelikume, you don't seem hopeful also with the current administration that, something might be different, something might change. At least we'll take 1 or 2 steps ahead.
I don't think I have seen any of those signs or signals. They're just not there. For example, if you ask me, will the exchange rate actually come down below what we are seeing today? I'll tell you the answer is strictly no. No, because we've not actually triggered the things that will bring down, that will show up the value of the Naira. And it's very simple. So there's this analysis that I do in class. And I ask the ladies in class, the hair, the artificial hair or synthetic hair you have on your head, where is it from? Where's the raw material from? Most times they don't know. Some will tell me it is rubber. Then I ask the guys in class, the frames and the glasses on your face, where is the frame from? Some will answer correctly, oh, we import this frame from India. But they ask again, what's the raw material that was actually used to produce the frame? Most times they don't know. And by the time you tell them it is from the petrochemical sector, and the country that is selling us these frames actually do not have crude. They import crude, they buy crude from Nigeria. They don't have the raw material to actually produce those frames. They don't have the raw materials to produce synthetic belts, synthetic leathers, synthetic hairs. We buy this finished product, but we have the raw material. We have the petrochemical sector that can actually begin to trigger production and trigger industrialization across that space. Unfortunately, our school system never prepared us to understand these things. And that's why we're where we are today. It's going to take us a long time, but if we go back, I've not seen us restructuring the educational sector. In fact, I see us tightening the nose on the educational sector. If you look at the 40% that the 40% talk about the federal and state institution, how it was actually dropped. I see us tightening the nose on that sector rather than expounding and building and coming up, crafting a vision that will actually help us. So we do not currently have a vision. We do not currently have direction on how to solve our health problem, on how to solve our educational problem, on how to even manage the exchange rate crisis. Speculators are actually having a field day, knowing that they can consistently bet against the Naira. And I can tell you, if you ask me, I will always bet against the Naira because I don't see anything that will bring it down other than noise.
Oh, wow. Well, we want to say thank you so much for joining us. It's been a deep conversation looking at the current state of Nigeria's economy, what it portends, especially for the future, and what it holds for the now. I want to say thank you so much for joining us all the way from the Lagos Business School. Thank you so much, Dr. Ikechukwu Kelikume. We truly appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.